I think it's so interesting how a fight's choreography can tell us so much about both the story itself and the characters. The way the characters fight and the style of martial arts they use can inform us as the audience about their current state of mind and their past. If a character is rough around the edges, growing up with a troubled childhood and having to struggle throughout their life to survive, their fighting style might reflect that. They're a street fighter or brawler, throwing their fists at any situation they can't talk their way out of, fighting dirty when they have to, and bulldozing through most of their problems whenever they can. On the other hand, what if a character has gone through many of those very same things, but they live in a world where their struggles are far too big to overcome with a couple well-placed right hooks? Maybe their conflict is one against society or nature itself, and although they wish to bull rush through it, they simply can't. It won't solve anything for them. They're stuck, forced into their situation, and must make the most of it. This character might have more of a technical, precise fighting style. Rather than being a brawler, they're a striker or a grappler, chipping away at their opponent's defenses piece by piece, earning tiny victories one at a time in a world that has set itself against them, and rebelling against the pressures that confine them. How interesting is that? The way a character fights can show us what kind of person they are, what is important to them, and what has happened to them to make them like this. In any given story, a fight scene between two characters is often just a way to make conflict happen and move the story along. And that's fine, but in a good narrative, a fight scene is never just that. A fight scene should have consequences, stakes, and as is the focus of this video, a fight scene can tell us so much about the characters involved in it. When two characters throw down, it's gotta mean something. When they throw a kick, punch, or wrestle, they should do it how their character would actually do it. You wouldn't expect a sheltered socialite to fight like a street urchin, or vice versa. To break this rule would be to take the audience out of the story and suspend their disbelief entirely. But if you play to its strengths, you can actually really get your audience to sink into the narrative and be immersed along with the characters. There are tons and tons of media that does this right, but I especially enjoy it when it's delivered through some kind of animation. In an animated show or movie, nothing's by accident, and any kind of improv or physical quirk an actor might have on a live set doesn't really happen through animated characters, because their gestures, quirks, and especially fighting styles are all deliberate. If they throw a punch a certain way, or use a certain martial arts technique, that is 100% what the writers and animators intended. This gives them so many opportunities to show characterization without that character even having to say anything. It also makes it that much more fulfilling for us as the audience when we pick up on those things. Those little details are the ones that elevate a show from pretty good and fun the first time through to excellent and rewatchable. I recently watched this little indie show you may have heard of, maybe not, called ARCANE on Netflix. ARCANE is basically full of this kind of great blending of both storytelling and martial arts choreography. If you don't know, the show centers around a character named Vi, a street rat from the Undercity, who has struggled basically all her life. She starts a fight with a character named Savika, who betrayed her and her mentor some years ago. Right off the bat, Vi comes in swinging, delivering a powerful flying knee to Savika's head. So what does this tell us? Well, we know Vi is a boxer, and also a street fighter. She doesn't care about a fair fight, she just wants to win, and will take a cheap shot to accomplish that. After pinning Savika against the wall and accusing her of betrayal, it's also clear to the audience that Vi has a lot of emotion invested in this confrontation. The characters square up and begin their brawl. This is what is so great about this kind of intentional choreography. Even if you've never seen the show and are watching the scene for the first time, you can form a very clear picture about what kind of characters these two are. Vi is quick, brash, and scrappy, diving headfirst into every exchange. Savika is similar, but is a more brutal and ruthless person, quickly punishing any mistakes her opponent might make. All this is clearly observable, while the characters have only said a couple lines each. Everyone has heard of the show don't tell rule when it comes to writing, and if this isn't that concept on full display, I don't know what is. As the fight goes on, both characters' fighting styles are put on display further. Vi tries to wear Savika down with jabs, hooks, and even a big right-handed Superman punch, while Savika tries to overwhelm Vi with her superior size and strength. Eventually, Savika gets the upper hand, pinning Vi to the wall and attempting to burn her with her artificial arm. But it's already been made apparent to us that Vi doesn't fight fairly. Considering her background, and current path of vengeance for her former mentor Vander, she's going to use any dirty trick she can to overcome her opponent. And yes, I mean any dirty trick. Now Vi has the upper hand, goading Savika into entering a smaller enclosed space if she wants to continue fighting. This is a great character moment for a few reasons. For one, Vi is clearly showing her intelligence by using her smaller stature to lure Savika in. Savika is much bigger than her, making a scrap in an enclosed space a much harder one for her. Not only that, but remember, Vi has been locked away in Stillwater for years now. It's safe to say she's probably been in more than a few fights in the tight corridors and claustrophobic cells of that very prison. Just one episode earlier, we see her get into a confrontation with another inmate. All this information is communicated by the characters and inferred by us without any words. No dialogue at all, just very deliberate choreography that stays true to the characters. This kind of storytelling is easy to exclude because no one will really notice when it's not present, but when it is accounted for and done well, it's extremely memorable. Finally, as the fight concludes, Vi gets the upper hand, but Savika ultimately wins by luring her into dropping her guard. Once again, an example of a character from the Undercity using an underhanded method to win. That's consistent writing. Now let's take a look at a fight scene with some major similarities to the previous one, but with some key differences. This one comes to us from an obscure little anime. You may not have heard of it. It's called Attack on Titan. To set the scene, we've just gotten this big reveal from the character Reiner, who's just told the protagonist Eren that he is actually the Armored Titan, and that he and his partner Bertold are essentially the ones responsible for Eren's mother's death all those years ago. So these two characters fall off the wall, shift into their Titan forms, and they square up, ready to fight. Eren, having just been told two of his most trusted comrades actually killed his mom, is understandably angry. This tracks well with Eren's character because he's always been angry. His first response to conflict is to usually rush in headstrong, with essentially no plan whatsoever. He does just that, and of course he gets his ass beat. He tries to fight Reiner his way, but he's facing off against the Armored Titan, who is simply too strong and too durable to defeat head-on. We've seen Eren respond this way before against another Titan shifter, and that scene also had a similar outcome. Way back in Season 1 when he and Annie were duking it out, Eren becomes enraged after the death of his squad mates, charges Annie, and he loses. He decisively loses. He's angry, he's a protagonist, but that doesn't make him win automatically like it might in other stories. As he's continually worn down by Reiner, we see the same thing happening. He's clearly losing. And so as Reiner charges in to finish the fight, Eren changes his tactics. Remembering his time spent training with Annie, he decides rather than go blow for blow with Reiner, he'll take Reiner down with throws, and then disable him once he's on the ground with some joint locks. Up to this point in the series, this fighting style is far from what you'd associate with Eren's character. Eren is typically hot-headed and quite brazen, the type you'd expect to fight, much like Vi from ARCANE. And he tries this at first, but his opponent was clearly way too strong. And so he learns from his past mistakes. He learns from his fight with Annie, where he never even stood a chance, and realizes that this time, the rage and hate just won't be enough. This is actually a huge turning point for Eren's character, where he learns that his tenacity and stubbornness can be useful, but won't get him very far if he doesn't have some kind of plan. From this point onward in the story, we see Eren rushing in headfirst a lot less, and coming up with a strategy a lot more. Once again, the choreography of the fight is demonstrating to us what the story wants to tell. It's an anime, so this is quite a bit less subtle, but still, it's very poignant, and these changes in Eren's character are very satisfying to observe. And while ARCANE is mostly 3D animation, and Attack on Titan is more traditional, these choices in choreography are still very much deliberate for both shows. Every slight movement and technique used by the characters, someone had to painstakingly animate that. And even more so, some of these things are advanced martial arts techniques, so it probably took a lot of research to get it right. Finally, let's move on to this really old anime, one that I don't see mentioned much. It's called Cowboy Bebop. I know, you've probably never heard of it, but stay with me, it's good. The show consists of 26 episodes in a movie called Knockin' on Heaven's Door, at the end of which there is a really great fight scene with some excellent choreography. This character named Vincent is planning to set off a bomb, and this other character named Spike is trying to stop him. In this fight, even more so than the other two we've already discussed, both characters' fighting styles are represented really clearly through the animation. Spike is a bounty hunter, and despite that, he's very nonchalant, go with the flow kind of guy. Throughout the show and movie, we actually see him practicing a martial art called Jeet Kune Do, created by famous actor and martial artist Bruce Lee. This is a martial art where the practitioner flows like water. According to the Bruce Lee Foundation website, Jeet Kune Do is centered around the self-expression of the individual over any organized style. And of course, it's brutally effective if wielded by the right person. That's a great reflection of Spike's character. He's easygoing, maybe even lazy, but that harmless veneer hides the potential to be incredibly violent beneath. During his fight with Vincent, it is only when he embraces the Jeet Kune Do style, intercepting Vincent's attacks with his own, and falling back on wide, powerful kicks that he begins to get the upper hand. Vincent's own fighting style is demonstrated clearly in this fight too. He has a background in the military, and the way he uses small, efficient, and very brutal strikes and punches reflects that. Rather than use kicks or punches with big windups utilizing centrifugal force like Spike, he prefers a more direct method. Once Spike begins to win, Vincent has to resort to a vicious claw grip that he used previously in the film. All this goes to show the animators really did their research while working on these projects. Every punch, kick, and technique is both carefully choreographed and animated. You can tell while watching too, all these characters' fighting styles stay true to their identity. Once again, when this concept is missing, it can go unnoticed, but when the writers and animators really take the time to flesh out their characters through their fighting styles, it provides the audience with great connection to the story and immerses us further.